Hey, church family, thank you for joining us for our last Daily Connection video of this week, talking about living a life of loyalty, and that loyalty really being centered on God. And so we have looked at the loyalty that has existed between Ruth and Naomi, specifically Ruth towards Naomi, even when maybe Naomi hasn't even acted the kindest in the midst of this whole conversation. Ruth has still been dedicated to her, and not just dedicated to Naomi, she's been dedicated to God. And so we're going to look at a passage of scripture today that as we talk about loyalty, man, we look at this and it kind of is thorny. We kind of think like, hey, is that really loyalty? As we've talked about, not just loyalty to people, but loyalty to God. Is this really loyalty? But I believe it actually is a picture of loyalty to God. And I'm going to get to that in just a moment. But first, let's read the passage. Ruth chapter 1, we're going to be looking at verses 19 through 22. The two of them traveled until they came to Bethlehem. And when they entered Bethlehem, the whole town was excited about their arrival. And the local women exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?" "Don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara," she answered. "For the Almighty has made me very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why do you call me Naomi, since the Lord has opposed me, and the Almighty has afflicted me?" So Naomi came back from the territory of Moab with her daughter-in-law, Ruth, the Moabitess. They arrived in Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. Isn't this interesting? We look at Naomi's response here. Hey, don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara, because the Lord has made me bitter. I went away full, and I've come back empty. I think it's important for us to realize that really their leaving the land of Judah was really a lack of faith in God. Elimelech and Naomi and Mahlon and Chilion, as they left to go to the land of Moab, they left because they didn't trust that the Lord was going to provide for them. And so they left God's promised land to go somewhere else. And so as we look at that, man, it seems almost like there's punishment for their lack of faith, and perhaps that's what this is. But I think that even though Naomi, or she wants to be called Mara, is showing what seems like real disrespect to God, I believe that there's actually faith that she's showing to God. And here's the reason why. When she lost her sons, when she lost her husband, she could have remained in the land of Moab. But instead, she turned to the land of her God. And when she comes into this town and people are excited to see her, notice, although she doesn't acknowledge him well, who is she acknowledging? She's acknowledging the presence of God. Here's the reality. Our lives do not always go how we plan them. Sometimes tragedy strikes. Sometimes things are very difficult. And in those moments, we can ask ourselves, is there even a God? Job cried out to God in a negative way. Man, just read some of the Psalms of lament of David as he cried out to God. And sometimes, God, have you abandoned me? Have you left me? And here, what do we see Naomi, or she wants to be called Mara, doing? Looking and saying, don't even call me bitter, is what she called me bitter, because God has turned his hand against me, right? God is destroying me. But whose existence is she acknowledging? She's acknowledging God. In the midst of her sorrow, in the midst of her pain, she's still acknowledging that God is real, that God is there. I think it's important for you and I to realize that when tragedy strikes, when we walk through very difficult times, it's okay if we look to God and we have questions about why in the world are you doing this? In fact, because we acknowledge him, we acknowledge that he is there, and we acknowledge that he is in control, we're continuing to be loyal to him. And so my challenge to you is, when you face difficult times, and I promise you, you will, when you face those difficult times, remember this story. Remember Naomi. Remember the woman who says, "Call me bitter." Remember her. Remember the loyalty that she showed to the Lord. That although she was angry with God, and although she questioned God, she still knew that God was in control. And my hope for you is that you will still believe God is in control when you face difficult times. Church family, we want you to know that we love you and we're praying for you.